Fishing like a local isn't just about catching fish. It's about connecting with the environment and the people who call it home. It's about hearing the stories and traditions that have been passed down for generations and sharing unforgettable moments with the people you meet along the way. Fishing like a local is having an experience that stays with you forever. And with Fishing Booker, you can experience it too, no matter where you are. Discover your next adventure on Fishing Booker.
Get ready for the greatest roast of all time, the Roast of Tom Brady, a Netflix live event happening May 5th. Hosted by Kevin Hart, the 7-time world champion gets his cleats held to the fire by famous friends and frenemies on an unforgettable night where everything is fair game. Tune in on May 5th at 5 p.m. Pacific time for the Roast of Tom Brady, live only on Netflix.
You ready?
Showtime.
On May 3rd, summer starts with The Fall Guy.
Let's do it later.
Let's drink a spicy margarita.
Make some bad decisions.
Yes!
Audiences are falling in love with the most entertaining film of the year.
Fall Guy.
Fall Guy?
Fall guy.
That's what the poster said.
See Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt in the movie critics say exists to make you happy.
Trying to make it out?
Nope.
Because I don't either. It's not what I'm into right now.
What are you into?
Talking.
Yeah.
The Fall Guy. Only in theaters May 3rd. Rated PG-13.
Brave anglers search for the one they call king, but who will take his throne? Tune in to Waypoint TV's Battle for Silver, Saturday, May 18th from 12 to 6 p.m. Eastern. Presented by Abyss Battery. Waypoint TV.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast, brought to you by Huntworth. Huntworth gear for all types of weather, all types of terrain, all types of budgets. It's clothing that just works. Check them out at huntworthgear.com. Lots of cool stuff going on right now. Zinger, if you haven't been paying attention, Zinger Canati, they just launched a thing where we talked about it a little bit before. But if you are at any of the Total Archery Challenges and you get entered in to win the truck, just post a picture up of it, and you'll be in a drawing, entered a drawing to win a set of Canati arrows. You'll automatically win a free set of zingers, and that's if you're shooting zingers right now. So zingers or Canati arrows. Post that up, and you'll be in a drawing to win that. And then if you end up winning the truck, they're going to give you $1,000. So that's pretty sweet. Just something to kind of add to the flair of that. And we were out actually shooting at the Bowman's Club tonight at 111 yards, and the zingers and Canatis that we have are flying tremendous. And I was out there with Travis Johnson, and we had talked a little bit before about the Tailgate Ready Challenge, so we're going to launch that today. It's going to run through the 14th. So it's going to run May 1st through the 14th. And all you got to do is follow Travis Johnson on Instagram, and then follow us as well. And we're going to make a post up, and you just need to comment on that post, and you'll be entered in to win a set of Canati arrows. And then if you're going to the Michigan TAC, you'll win 11 shots for the truck. So we'll get you set up with those arrows. We'll get you some shots for the truck, and we'll get a hold of you in the meantime, and try to either set up something to make sure that your bow's on, get your tape set, and then a little bit of coaching from Travis up there at the Total Archery Challenge. So all of that, look for that post coming out today, or just look for that on our Instagram. So we're going to be doing that. Latitude, one of our good friends, Latitude, they're going to be up at the Total Archery Challenge as well. They've got their Rebel platforms back in stock, and they're actually on sale. And then you can use that code BHC, and it brings it down even further. So those platforms with our code are like $204. So if you're in the market for a platform, one of the solid not cast platforms, the Rebel is a incredible option, and definitely go check them out. They're back in stock now. And then finally, the Muskegon Bowman's Club, they are kicking off their Broadhead League. So it's really interesting. Not many people have that available haven't been able to shoot it. So it's shooting cardboard cutouts, but actually hunting type situations at cardboard silhouettes with your broadhead. So it's really actually kind of training for hunting versus just going out and shooting 3D. And so there's lots of guys who can shoot spots but have a problem on animals and vice versa. And so this is kind of one of those things that actually gets to level the playing field. So the leagues are starting, but you can go out there and just drop in, and it's $5 to do so at the Muskegon Bowman Club. So definitely check that out. But this podcast, last year I was fortunate to go over to the HHA USA event, their first event of the year is a kickoff for veterans and first responders. So you get to hang out with just veterans and kind of see what archery's done for the veteran community, for the law enforcement community, as kind of like a therapeutic type thing. So this podcast has a couple of the Patreons, one here from the Muskegon area, and then one from Tennessee. So these guys, both combat veterans, lots going on in their lives and in their heads. And we kind of talk about like how archery can be therapeutic and kind of work through that, and some of the outlets and things that are available out there for veterans around the archery community, and things that we were exposed to and these guys maybe never would have been exposed to were it not for this HHA USA event. So if you get a chance to do one of those, definitely check it out. Thanks to Chris Ham and everybody at HHA, and then Vortex for opening their doors as well. So, but that's what this podcast is. Definitely go check out the stuff over there at Latitude, Zinger or Canati, and we're going to be giving away those arrows. Follow Travis, all that stuff. And big shout outs to, like Big Shot Targets, Spartan Forge, Lucky Buck, Genesis 3D. Genesis 3D has an awesome self-filming thing to adapt your selfie stick for your 360 camera into a monopod for, like, right now, turkey hunting. It would be amazing set out in some goose decoys or something like that. Just another creative way to kind of utilize something that you already have. Check them out, Genesis 3D. Really Austin and Hope are freaking awesome. So great people over there, and just that's what we're doing now. So getting those bows built and getting ready for tack, and our turkey season is going to start this weekend. So looking forward to all that. But guys, as always, thank you for listening. Enjoy the episode. All right, everybody, Adam back with another episode of the Bowhunter Chronicles podcast. The sweet sounds of the Yingling Light opening here. So we're here at the Vortex, I guess it's HHA USA shoot that they put on through Vortex for veterans, and I feel like it's a really special thing what Chris is trying to do here to kind of give back to veterans and stuff like that. And it's a really cool experience. So on the podcast today, I have Jack Langlois and Brad Collings, both Patreons, friends of the show, all of that fun stuff. But both veterans who, when Chris was telling me about this last year, were the first two guys that I thought about bringing to this event. I'm like, this event is like built for these types of gentlemen. Like, yes, I'm a veteran, but that we've talked about it a bunch through the weekend and stuff. And like, I feel like there's different levels to veterans as far as like, what you did, where you served, all that stuff. Like, and like for me, it was just something to do. Like, these guys are like I was like, I signed up and I was like, just a kid, like, let's see if I can do it. And then other shit happened. Right. And these guys were like in the middle of it, like, we're patriots. We're going to go save the world, which was not like my thing was like very personal choice to be like, just to see if I could do it. Right. And so I think that there's like a big difference there, just like personally. So, thank you guys for being on the show, for coming, but I'm so happy that you guys were able to come to this year. And so we're just going to kind of talk through like the experience of coming here. So, Jack, and Brad, we'll let Brad go first. He likes to talk. So, but like, so Brad, what was your, I guess like your history as a veteran and all that stuff? We've had Brad on for like, I forget what he was on for, shooting something, bunch of deer, being loudmouth.
Yeah, I think like 3 times now.
Yeah. So, but so Brad does BDS outdoors and all that. Not BDSM outdoors. That's a whole other thing. That's a OnlyFans. You can check that out if you want some paid content. But anyways,
that was an interesting conversation.
So for you, like, what was your expectations like coming up to this thing, and then you got to do the whole tour at Vortex and all that stuff?
Expectations were, I don't even know. I've never done like a 3D shoot before, so I wasn't really sure. Obviously, I listened to you talk about TAC a million times, and other guys like Jack and whoever that has gone up there to hang out with y'all. And I've said it before, a bunch, that I just never thought this was like a TAC was something I ever wanted to do. And fast forward through the last 2 days, especially today. Yesterday was a little interesting, but it was like 35-mile-an-hour winds, and we were all online shooting 40 yards at like I said earlier, like a Revolutionary War status. It was like, aim, draw, fire, aim, draw, fire. But honestly, expectations were just to come hang out with y'all and have a good time, and I feel like so far we've accomplished that mission. Yeah. So for everybody listening or whatever, like, so Brad's up from Tennessee. We're in Wisconsin. Jack and I live in the same town. Drove separately, but it's like a 5-hour plus drive. So it's one of those things where it is a commitment to come here, and you got to spend money, and you got to, but I think they do a good job of, doing what they can to give back. And like, it's we won't get into it, but it's like pretty much a veterans only law enforcement, first responder type event. And so everybody here, like, one of the things we did yesterday for the Revolutionary War shoot, we'll call it, was it was a random scramble. So I don't know, Brad, you got paired with 3 different guys. I got paired with, or 2 different guys. Mm-hmm. I got paired with 2 different guys. And Brad's like, I came up here to shoot with you, not with like some random dude. But like, we met some real cool people through that. And everybody, I mean, I guess it kind of like sets a baseline, like kind of everybody's coming from the same background, right? Mm-hmm. So that was pretty cool. And then Jack, like, Jack's experience may be a little bit sordid, but you showed up a little bit later yesterday, but he got to have go to the concert deal and got to see like the camaraderie aspect of it. Because when Jack got there, everybody was just starting to have a cocktail or so and all that.
The after party.
So, yeah. So for you, Jack, like, expectations versus, like, what did you expect coming over here for this?
I would say the same thing as Brad. Just the camaraderie, hanging out with people, hearing stories, seeing people, you don't see too often, but on polo. I don't know. I didn't really have like high expectations as to this is what I hope I'm going to experience or see. It was just coming out just to have fun.
So I want to like dive into it a little bit for you guys for like what, and Jack, I'll let you kind of go first, because I feel like I said, I think it like speaks to you more, but like, what does like archery do for you or mean to you, like, at this point? Because that's the one thing, like, Chris has done a real good job with his podcast, and he's got some, I don't know what you'd call them, like short films about, how archery's kind of like helped individuals and things like that. But the archery like mindset for yourself, like, what is that? How has that helped you from coming back and being a veteran in society and all that stuff?
Therapeutic. Like I've said, I started off with not thinking I could pull the bow back, you know. I had a bum shoulder, and it was just like, I don't know. And my younger brother got a bow for his birthday and brought it over. We were having a barbecue, and he just wanted to shoot in the backyard. He's like, hey, you know, go ahead and do it. And I think it was like at 60 pounds. It's like, I don't know. He's like, just try it. If you can't do it, you can't do it. And I was able to pull it back and then took the shot. I'm like, oh, this is cool. Immediately went out, got me my own bow, but it just, for me, it's therapeutic out. Whatever BS is going through my head, whatever I'm going through that day, I go out and shoot. And it's like, you know, my intentions is shoot 5 arrows, but then that might turn into a 15-20 minute session. And, you know, by the end of that session, it's like, I don't remember why I was pissed or what was bothering me. And there's so much into shooting a bow than what I think people who don't shoot don't understand. You know, it's like you always say, the process. You got your shot process, you know. Is your bow hand where it's supposed to be, your grip? Is your anchor point where it's supposed to be? Is everything lined up the way it's supposed to be? So it's like my mind is going through my checklist. And I think that process of mentally making sure I'm supposed to be doing what I'm supposed to do in order to have that perfect shot gets my mind off of whatever, you know, so I'm able to focus on making that perfect shot or the perfect form. And like I said, after so many shots or at the end of the session, it's like, I don't even remember why I came out here besides shooting, but you know, I don't know what pissed me off.
It's funny that you say that, because it makes me think of like very like rudimentary, like if your kid or like is being bad, or if you know, you're angry or whatever, they say like, stop, count to 10, you know, but it's like, essentially that's what you're doing. You're saying, okay, but instead of counting to 10, you're like, all right, how are my feet set? Yep. Like you're just focusing on something different, but it's just something that's so absolutely complex and then polarizing in its own right, where if you shoot and you think you did it right, or you're like, oh man, I pulled that one, or like whatever. So now you want to get back to it. And so now you go through that whole process again. And like, by the end, you're just like, well, I counted to 10, right? But you know, it's like focused on it.
Like I would watch all these videos, you know, cause it's like, I didn't hunt as a kid. I was that athlete, football, hockey, whatever. Hunting was not within my mind. So I didn't have any desire to shoot, but I was watching a video and it was Levi Morgan, and he said that when he was younger, his dad would make him shoot 1 arrow. He'd take that shot, put his bow down, and then he'd walk however long the distance to retrieve the arrow. And he couldn't understand why, but his dad kind of explained to him, it's like you get this time to think about your shot. What did you do wrong? What could you do better? So then I incorporated that. So instead of just shooting like, you know, 5, 6, 7 arrows into a target, it was that one shot, put the bow down. And then as I'm walking, it's like, okay, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? What do I need to fix?
And so for you, Brad, like, I feel like I'm like sitting with like, yin and yang here. 'Cause I feel like Jack's like big, quiet, like thoughtful. One might even say smart. And then we've got Brad, who's 4'12", 4'10".
That's 5 feet.
You did know that.
Oh.
Good for you. And he's, even though he's not right now, he's loud and boisterous and, you know, arrogant. I don't know, all of these things. But you have like a completely different background, like going into archery. And then like today shooting with the two of them, it was like, it was tons of fun. And I think it goes back to like, and we can let Jack expound on it, his Total Archery Challenge experience. But today, like, since you've never shot 3D and you've never like experienced that, like, you know, kind of shooting in a group, like the online shooting yesterday was like, well, this is okay, but this is not kind of what I'd sign up for.
Yeah, definitely. Yesterday was not what I was expecting, right? Like, I didn't think we were going to attack. I didn't think we were going to be dropping 90-yard bombs uphill from our knees from like whatever, but like yesterday was a little, and I get it, like at least we got to shoot. I'm not knocking anything from that. And like you said, I got paired up with two dudes that I never would have talked to most likely. And we talked for the rest of the night. But that online thing was it was a bit much. And it necessarily wasn't, there was a couple stragglers and that made it difficult.
It took a lot longer than it should have.
Yes. Yeah. It was frustrating to say the least. And it was like, and I don't mean to be whatever, but it was this
30-mile-an-hour winds all the time.
Right. And it was like these dudes with these big, long target bows, and all of us hunting dudes that just pulled up, drew, shot, like, okay, that's the wind today, so that's what you got to work with. And like this one guy, I don't remember which target we were at waiting, but I remember they had just come from the end, they switched up around on the end, and it was like draw, and he like wind gust, and he let down. And we're all waiting, like, 150, 100, however many people were waiting to get arrows. And then dude was like, draw, let down. I was like, all right, you're done. 2 letdowns, you're done. No more letdowns. Your
whatever animal
count.
is gone.
Yeah.
You know.
And it's not, it's like, you can see us all waiting. You know, it's not for money. It's not for, there was some prizes and stuff, and I get that. But like,
are you overwhelmed by the hundreds of food plot mixes out there? Well, you are not alone. And Vitalize Seed has developed a program that takes the guesswork out of food plotting. Vitalize makes it simple with their 2 core mixes, Nitro Boost and Carbon Load. Nitro Boost is their spring-summer food plot mix, and Carbon Load is for planting in the fall, each having a diverse mix of over a dozen seed types that are highly attractive to whitetail. Food plotting made simple. Each mix provides necessary nutrients to the soil, making for better plots each season. This also saves you money by needing less Roundup and fertilizer every year. The 1-2 system simplifies your food plots just how nature intended. And for the more advanced habitat managers, Vitalize also offers a variety of natural amendments with products like their seed feed that offer seeds immediately available minerals ready as soon as they germinate. Make biology work for you. Order now at vitalizeseed.com.
It was supposed to be fun, and you ended up getting frustrated in between each round. There was fun, and then there was
competition.
Waiting. Yeah.
It was you were waiting for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And like, it would seem like even sometimes you'd be like waiting for guys, and it was like they were caught up in the conversation. They're like, oh, I still got to shoot. Like, I just been over here shooting the shit for 20 minutes. Like, your buddies couldn't have told you like, hey, you want to shoot an arrow? Like, because it was like shooting with a 150-man group.
Yeah. And even in that, like, so one of the dudes I was shooting with, his bow started making a noise. So we had ample time to like tap this bow, like different spots, cams, limb pockets, like, and figured out it ended up being his sight housing was a little off, and he twisted the knob and good to go. But like, we had a lot more time to catch up. I don't think that was initially in the plan. But we got to talk and, figure out what each other did and where we served, how we served, stuff like that. So that aspect of it was nice. Whereas if it was a little more fast paced, we wouldn't have got that. I feel like there was a few of those transitions that were a little longer than they should have been.
And then today was like a regular, what I would say like a normal 3D shoot. If you went to your club, there was, 25, 26 targets that were, well, they were supposed to be like 18 to, I don't know what any of the targets that were long, because we had free range of the range. Like, we shot them at 80 yards or whatever, because we were like, let's do this.
111.
Well, that was the second time through, but yeah, we had the range to ourselves at some point. Like, we stayed and shot for a long time. So for you, like, to that aspect, because at one point Brad looks at us and he goes, if tack's like this, then I could do this.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this is exactly like what that's like. So what did you think about today's shooting versus yesterday? Because we got to shoot together also.
Right. So the only other 3D experience I've ever had was a couple months ago. I went to a trad shoot down by us, and it was very much like that. I was by myself. I didn't know anybody. I ended up in between two groups of gentlemen, and we got to have a conversation. And, one conversation was a grandpa's and some kids. The other conversation was like us in 20 years. It was a bunch of 67-year-old dudes out there just having fun with their friends. So I got to see kind of both aspects of that at that shoot. And then this one was very similar to that. You just kind of walked through at the club and shot at the yardages. And there was times at the other shoot where it's very much like today where you're like, well, let's quiver dump. Like, we ain't got nothing better to do. And then the old guys behind me at the other shoot were like, hey, man, shoot again. Like, who are you holding up? We got, you start, there was no time, you had to be off the range. The last person had to step off at 3:00. That was the only rule at the other shoot. So he was like, who are you holding up? He's like, we're just all waiting the same you're waiting. Like, shoot some more while you're standing there waiting for the other people to move on. So that's kind of like what today was. We just kind of had fun. If you wanted to take an extra shot, you wanted to shoot through the tree limb, you wanted to do whatever, we did it. Shot from our knees a bunch, like just to
extend the yardage a little bit.
Old girl was like, hey, that target's worn out in the 10 ring. You can't even shoot it. And we're like, we put 3 arrows in a wolverine's head, like, or a badger, whatever it was. So just that kind of thing was where we had fun today versus, and then I add all the other, sticking 900 arrows in the dirt in front of that elk. But
well, we were like, once we got done, we went and we were like, why are they shooting this out? Like, I don't know what the yardage was supposed to be. I think it was like 40 to 60 yards.
Yeah, we never even looked. We just decided
we were like,
shoot it from this other spot.
And they had a buffalo and
I don't think it was that. I think it was probably like 30 or 40 maybe, if that.
Yeah, because we were shooting the other ones at 60, right?
Yeah.
60, 65. And then we were like, once we shot and everybody, we were like, there's like, 2 groups after us or something. So we just messed around and I got my sight tape on a little bit better. And we're like, well, we're going back out there. Let's go shoot that elk. And we shot it from, Brad's like, my sight can go to 80, 85. Let's try that. And so we were shooting them. And then we ended up walking it all the way back to the 111 for the tack shoot and just shot at whatever. And then we were shooting later on in the day. Like, I want to ask Brad about like because Brad shoots at every deer that walks by him almost.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about, he said I wasn't being fiscally responsible with some of the shots that I was taking. And like, I felt like you had so much anxiety over just the loss of equipment. And like, Jack, you kind of, with what you were saying there with the archery, and I wanted to go back to like the tack stuff, because you came up to tack last year was the first time that you stayed with us and everything. And at first he was the same way. Like, you lose a couple arrows, make a couple bad shots, and it's target panic. And now everything is like super pressing. And then like once you got out of your own head, it's like
allowed myself to have fun is what it was at that point.
But it's more like being with you said it was more like being with your Marines again, because everybody's like, it's all dick and fart jokes, and you're trying to razz the other guy, and it doesn't matter. Like, no, like that was a discussion that we had today too, is like there was like levels of guys there, and there were guys that were hunters, there were guys that were super into 3D, and then there were guys that were like sit in their ladder stand, shoot their bow a couple of times type hunters. And I feel like that's the same way when it comes to 3D, because there are people that are shooting for, the 14s, and there are people that are shooting at foam. And I think like maybe once you got that out of the 14 aspect of it, it was like in the face, like,
Yeah.
Because I think it's a lot easier to have the camaraderie, and it doesn't matter. Like at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you hit the target or whatever. And I think I said this today is like, did you have fun? Like, did you laugh? Did you smile? I mean, if I told Brad this because I lost 2 arrows just sending them at like little targets at over 100 yards here at the end of the night.
It's like you turn around like, hey, there's a target. How far is that? Oh, it's like 108 yards. Let's do it.
Yeah. And Brad's like, you can't do that. You can't do that. You're not going to hit it. You didn't hit the other ones. Like, well, maybe I learned something. And I did hit the javelina or whatever at 108 yards.
Yeah, right in the dick.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not easy, folks.
No.
Like,
well, like that, right? So you're talking about the being back with your guys, right? So at one point, we're all online looking at that bear, right? And the first 3 shots that went out were like for the 12 ring, right?
Mm-hmm. And
it was like somebody said it, right? In the dick. And then immediately the next 3 shots were at this bear's dick. Like it wasn't, and it wasn't like spoken. It wasn't like it was just like, yep, I know where the next one's going. Yep. And next thing you look up and there's 3 different fletchings sitting there because we all had the same idea at the same time. And that's the kind of fun I was, I guess, hoping I was going to get out of this trip, and then ended up getting at that.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like there are people and you said it. You're like people would, if people knew what we were doing right now, they would think we are crazy. Like the other people that were had these long stabilizers and stuff like that, and it's like that's not who I am. Like I just turn around. I'm like, well. Every time I've ever shot with John or with anybody at any 3D course ever, and it's probably just the people that I associate with. But like if you walk up and there's a target across the way and it's within your sight tape, like I'll be damned if we're not shooting at it. Like you roll up to the 3D course and nobody's around and you're like, how far is it from here to that one? And you'll just see somebody's eyes light up and you see them messing with their tape and they're like, oh, he's going for it. He's going to do it. And you're like, people would think you're crazy. And like, I think that, and you said, well, I know you're crazy, but that to me is normal. Like that's what when I go to anything like that, like these guys are, there's just a glimmer in their eye. Like I can hit that from here. Right.
Right.
You know, I mean,
or try.
Well,
yeah. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that I've just never done that before.
A life that has the stories to back it. A life to be proud of. It's a Winchester life.
Yeah, baby. 6'8" Western. Oh, mule deer, baby, right there.
Tune in every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV.
Like, I've never really shot on any range other than like the house. So like, at the house, I'm kind of more like that, where I just walk somewhere and whether I range it or I don't, and I send an arrow and, but like we were in the car on the way back and I was legit trying to like rack my brain as to why that was my reaction and not just like, and I think it was, like deep down, it was because of like the way I got those arrows. I didn't want to be like disrespectful to that. Like if those were the Easton Axis at the house that I had versus the Canatis I was shooting, I'm going to let you know I probably would have been like, I mean, I can't tell you the amount of times we did that as kids, like with those little bare, no cam bows. We were trying to shoot birds at 100 yards with like, you just, and you'd find there was a spot that like the arc wouldn't arc anymore. You started losing yardage, and then we knew, but like, yeah, it just like something came over me today and I was like, oh, we can't do that. I don't know why Adam's doing this.
I know.
We gotta,
like I looked over and it was like Brad was like shaking. His eyes were like so big and he was like, you shouldn't do that. Like, don't do. I'm like, I got. And like I'm normally the fun
guy. Like I'm normally like, let's have fun. But like, I don't know what it was. Something today, I was just like, yeah, I can't lose anymore. You know what I mean? Like it felt wrong, and I can't explain to you why. And even to like right now, I've been trying to just absolutely rack my brain. Yeah, and I think it's just because of the way I got those arrows. It felt wrong. It's the only other way to describe it. It just So it was like I said, if I had bought them, like yours were bought arrows you bought, so it's a little different. And
but I also knew what I was getting into. Like I knew,
right? Yeah, you've done this before.
But you said so he said on the way back, he's like, the thought of buying arrows just for
an event like this,
losing
like slinging them in the dirt. Yeah.
And it's like, they're not, I mean, they're not indestructible. You're going to break them somewhere. You're going to lose them. You're going to do something. And but he's the same guy that'll shoot them at deer through brush, or like, just send them recklessly at animals, which I don't agree with. No, I'm just kidding. Like, I mean, if you can make the shot, make the shot. I mean, but you think about it. Bow hunters are 100% opportunists, and that's why I don't have a problem, shooting for a kill shot rather than a 14 or a 12 or whatever.
And that today I did a bunch of that. You were like, oh, we just keep heart shotting. And I was like, that's great. I will heart shot every piece of foam out here. I don't care where and those poor dudes I was with yesterday, like the first 2 or 3 targets, I was like, oh, that's in the vitals. That's all I care. And they were like, no, dude, we're shooting for circles. Like they'd be like, hey, up 2 inches, left 2 inches with their binos. And I was like, I don't care about that shit. Like I'm trying
down their score. Damn it.
Yeah. And luckily it was a scramble. So like best arrow won. And I think like maybe 1 out of 20 targets was there, was I the best arrow in my team. And it wasn't because I wasn't trying, but it was because I just didn't care.
You have a different mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, one of my buddies who I shot with last year, and I was just awful. Like I was happy to be in the foam at 30 yards because I had such target panic. Like I was losing my frickin' mind. And, I'm a much different shooter this year than I was then. And I've been doing a lot of the shooting in my basement, like shooting at pins, shooting at little things, and shooting a lot of arrows just to manage the manipulation of the release, like making sure that I'm doing that. And it's not all shot process, but it's like once you put all the shot process together, there's a whole bunch of things that run, at least for me, like on autopilot. And so then it's like, okay, this is all I have to do is this release. If I can do this release well and get a clean release, then it's going to go where the pin was. And I have to be cool with wherever that is. If I moved, or if like yesterday with the wind and stuff like that, it's
that was crazy.
But I got a lot better with that. But that anxiety, that shooting, that was terrible. And so that was a whole nother thing about, I wasn't even like vital shooting. I was just shooting at like animal, and it was like ping, ping, hitting boards, and everything was wrong last year. So I can understand that. And I had expensive arrows last year and all that stuff. But like I said to you in the car, I'm like, those arrows that I bought 6 years ago, or whenever I bought them, I got my money's worth out of them. And the fact that I lost a couple doing dumb things, like I lost one legitimately on one of the unknown distance targets yesterday. But today I lost one trying to shoot through a V that you didn't think I could shoot through, which the arrow was lost. And I said, I'm okay with it being lost because I fully expected it to either break or hit the target. Like I was fully okay with not coming home with that arrow. And the other one I shot at that hog at 109 yards, and
it went somewhere.
Yeah. I just missed. So whatever. But that was my fault. I didn't make any like dumb, like I didn't mess up any 20-yard shot, like 19-yard shots or anything like that. So
I did.
Well, yeah. Well, and
that mosquito.
Yeah. Well, I think that's where you decided that peer pressure was not going to be a thing anymore. Yeah. But I said, because I saw you looking at it, I'm like, if you try and shoot that mosquito in the head, and it was like, pew, 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 pew. And but you lost the one at 111, right?
Yeah, one of I think it was 111. I don't know. We were at 100 plus for a while, and that's where me and Jack both lost an arrow. I think same volley. Well, no, you lost yours a little bit earlier. It doesn't matter. Same yardage, I believe. It was 111.
But that was kind of our fault. We didn't spot that one very well. Like it was, and then Brad, being Brad, turns in both of his sets of binoculars he's like, oh, I got binoculars I need to drop off, but I'll bring my backup so I can use those. And they're like, hey, we'll take them both. And he's like, yeah, absolutely.
Well, and like I said, my tour guide, that was really dumb, but my tour guide for the Vortex headquarters was like, oh, I think I can have those back by the time you finish lunch. And I was like, sweet. And originally it was just the cups, the eye cups, like you couldn't use them to focus anymore because they had come loose and on my Diamondbacks. So I was like, shoot, well, I'll just take them over there and drop them off. And when I pulled the wrong set of binos out of the car originally. I pulled my Crossfires out. And when I did, I realized that like the circle was missing. They were caked in mud. And old boy was like, no, I'll bring those inside. I was like, no, they're good. He's like, no, I'm not going to let you leave. He's like, we'll get you hooked up. And I was like, cool. So I dropped them off and then I went and farted around for a minute. And I went back to the guy that had them and he was like, yeah, I'm looking them over. He's like, you're not getting these back today. I was like, well, shit. And then it was kind of weird. Another guy said, but he had what are the expensive ones? Razors?
Yeah, I think so.
He said he went to the front desk lady and said, hey, is there any way I can get these fixed today? And she just pulled him a brand new pair off the shelf and handed them to him. And I was like, well, why didn't I get that? Like, what the heck? But the guy in the back told me, he was like, we're going to make sure that everything's right. They're all perfect. Like, we're not going to just... And I imagine that's kind of the difference between the bottom level and that dude spent what, $1,500 on his, and I got mine for free in a giveaway from Tethered. So what's up?
Well, it is what it is. But I don't know. I really enjoy, like I kept telling you guys, but like that's the way that we are shooting today is like the way that I enjoy shooting. Like I'm like, and Jack is very humble, but he's freaking, he needs to shoot. Like we've talked about our buddy TJ who shoots really well, and we've got him to shoot some ASA events and some things like that. And Jack needs to do that because Brad's like, why aren't you shooting? And Jack says, well, I'm just lucky.
It's all luck.
It's like, yeah, lucky. Yeah.
12 on 20 of 25 targets is just luck. And multiple arrows too. Not like Jack got, shot three times and he got an 8, a 5, and a 12. No, Jack shot 2 12s and a real close line cutter on the 10. And, out of his 3 shots. Meanwhile, I was the other guy we were talking about. Like, you said that last time. Oh, Brad got a 12 on his 4th arrow. Like, well, I walked him in there.
You got an aggregate 12.
Yeah.
It was 5, and like, we'll give him a 2 on that one.
Yeah.
For trying. But no, I guess what would you guys, like Jack, for yourself, like for anybody, or I guess has this experience, and we talked to some really cool kind of like companies or programs that are like trying to bring archery to like first responders and veterans and stuff like that. Like, what was your take on that, or what would you say to people that know somebody who's maybe like struggling or something that may be, I don't want to say like resistant to help or therapy or anything like that, but might be interested in archery or something like that?
I'm trying to think. I guess with my experience, so my anxiety, and we talked about this yesterday. I was talking to Chris Ham, and it's like
no big deal.
Yeah. Looking forward to this event. Like last year, I was planning on going, but I think something happened. I don't know if it was like my kids' lacrosse games or something. But then like this year, you're like, hey, you're going. I'm like, okay. So talk to the wife. This is the dates. Awesome. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm all excited. But then as the time gets closer, anxiety kicks in. It's like I find excuses. Oh, man, I'm feeling sick or whatever. It's like I'm trying to sabotage me having fun. I think advice-wise, so somebody like me with anxiety, I'm not going to go by myself to a club without a buddy. It's like you went and did that trad 3D shoot.
And I mean, you guys saw the polos. I don't know. Most of that was in the trad groups. I don't know if you saw it, but
I don't think so.
I could show you them. I was absolutely freaking out. I thought I was going to show up and it was going to be the guys we saw today with the eye patches and the stuff that, you see on the Olympics. I thought it was going to look like that.
Tape on their nose.
I was going to be the laughing stock of this like group because I just showed up with this old bow my grandpa gave me, like barely can shoot it well. Up until
doing it forever.
Yeah, up until like where I stepped up to the line for like first shot was a moose at like, I don't know, 25 or whatever yards. And until I walked up and old boy was like, well, go ahead and shoot. And until that point I had like, I was making diamonds in my shorts. Like I was freaking out. And then archery did what archery does. And it took me to a place that makes me happy and centers me. And
when I think like my advice would be just be that friend. I'm one where I don't like to do things by myself. I was stationing in San Diego area and I've always wanted to go up to Alcatraz, but none of my buddies wanted to go. It's like, I don't want to make that 8-hour trip by myself. So I never went. And it's one of like the regrets I had. So I think, if you're a friend who hunts and you got a friend who's struggling, put that bow in his hand or their hand. Have them shoot it. And then you might see that spark. At least with me, it was like, holy crap, like this is pretty cool. I love shooting my guns, but I can't do that in the backyard in the city, but I can shoot my bow. So it's like, cool. I have something I can do to get me out of my funk.
It's an interesting like thought, like something I've never considered, till now. Cause I mean, I've not from that avenue, right? I'm not like, oh man, you should hunt with me because I think you should come shoot bows or whatever. I don't ever think about that. We've just always been like, we've got extra stuff, come hunting, do this. But it's always centered around hunting and not just the shooting. Right. But when you were talking about that and you were, when Jack was talking about that and when Brad was talking about the trad stuff, and like, I remember those polos, and it's funny because it was like, he was sabotaging. He was doing the exact same thing that Jack was talking about but he was just talking to us and he's like, well, I don't think I got the right arrows. Like, I don't even know if I'm going to go, like the time. Like, I mean, it was in like the guys in the group were like, just go, it's going to be fine. Like, you just go do that. But I think about it, and I was thinking about this. One of the programs that they had here that they talked about that we were, kind of alluding to is called Center Shot. They had these like Genesis bows, which are these like kids bows, which I think of them as kids bows, but they're like infinitely adjustable, whatever. And they're bare bows with nothing. And I think of archery kind of as like, all you got to do is, anchor here, line up your peep, level your bubble, these 10 things in a row and you can get on target. But that is like the antithesis of like why I like archery. That's why I like shooting the trad bow. And I think that maybe that's that Genesis thing and that traditional archery, and like the recurve or longbow is probably better because you don't need any special equipment or whatever. Like, it's like a bow, a string, and a freaking arrow. And when you shoot it, and I've said it a million times, but I've never like processed it like in this like thought pattern, is that like when you make a good shot, like it feels so freaking good. Like when you make like, if I made a good shot today, like at 100 yards, I'm like, yeah, that's awesome. At 20 yards, it's like, if I'm off by a half inch, 2 inches at 20 yards, I'm like, oh my God, I'm the worst ever.
Yeah. It's like it's anticipated. Yeah.
Like, yeah. And then, but if I make that same
expected, I guess,
2-inch overshot with a trad bow, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm the best ever. Like, it was so good. It felt so good. That was a good shot. You make a real good shot with a trad bow. And so I think that that's almost part of it, because it's those things that you can process that you did yourself, is like almost like that drug that's like, because like with the trad bow, I never want to put it down because it's just so much fun.
Yeah.
It's what we did today was like fun because we were shooting together and like the camaraderie, but shooting my trad bow is like way more fun. And it's nothing for me to just give it to you or anybody and just say, shoot it. Like, and then shoot it again. Maybe you can get a little bit better. And then as soon as you start to like walk it in or like figure it out, then it's like, oh my God. And I don't know if that maybe is like kind of what you guys are talking about, like in feeling like either like self-esteem or fulfillment or, whatever, like you said about pulling your brother's bow back, like I can do it. But I think then back to the Patreon hunt where we had the trad bow sitting out there and Mr. Fiscally Responsible over here is taking my arrows on a freaking black squirrel hunt through the neighborhood, and not my stuff. AMS.
Well, yeah. You said it was fine. And then TJ Robin Hood it and you didn't get mad. So whatever.
Right.
Squirrel.
Did we have fun?
I had a great time.
And that's all that matters. But I think
you guys are trying to take my boots off to track or stalk a black squirrel 15 yards from where I was standing.
But that was that same thing, and I was thinking about that. I was remembering that when I was talking about the eyes lighting up because like here's Brad shooting at. It's like if it were deer season on a farm where you could shoot whatever, and you see those things where the deer walk through the 3D course. Mm-hmm. Like that's exactly what happened. Like squirrels were in season, you had a tag, and then here's a squirrel like that walks right behind the target, and you're like, oh my God, it's on. So, but I think that like with the trad bow or some, like even those Genesis bows, that's probably why they do that. Cause the barrier of entry is so low, for that. And I think like what you were saying, as far as like space or whatever, like that's why archery is like maybe a lot more accessible and could be utilized in situations like this and stuff like that. Right.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would totally agree. It's like, those bows that you're talking about, like the kids' bows, they're not as complicated as like what we have for our Matthews or the Hoyts, and you got the expensive releases and expensive rests and sights and dialing in and, it becomes complicated if you don't know what you're doing or even stressful. It's like with me, I'm a perfectionist, which I'm trying to overlook, but it's so hard.
Not on the 3D course.
Well, it
wasn't overlooking that because
beginner's luck. And it's like I always felt like, oh, it's got to be the equipment. I'm hitting here. It's got to be the equipment. So I make the adjustments, and it's like, well, nothing's moving. It's like, well, it's got to be the equipment. Let's get a new sight. Same stuff. It's like, man, what's going on? Then it's like, okay, step back, readjust, reset. And then it's like, it's me. But I think with those types of bows, they're not as complicated. Besides the trad, I think that's like a whole different skill all in its own.
I'm telling you, it looks scary. Or it seems scary because you don't have the sight. Your training wheels, as Tom likes to say, right? You don't have your training wheels. You don't have sight. You don't have, on my bow, I got a nose button. My hand has to be held the right way. My fingers have to touch the front. My nose button touches my nose. And with my trad bow, I'm like, soon as I feel the feathers touch my nose, it's gone. And it, honestly, when I'd been shooting just the trad bow for a long time, and I was like, oh shit, I have to put a sight tape on my bow to go to this 3D shoot, or I'm going to be just lost. And so I started shooting my compound again, and I was instinctively shooting my Hoyt RX1 with the sights and the peep and all the, whereas my shit would line up, and I'm like, why am I not? It's 20 yards. Why am I not hitting? And then it like third or fourth arrow, it clicked. Like I was trad bow shooting. I was anticipating a drop. I was like aiming for the,
well, even in your video on Polo, you're like, you can see the frustration. It's like with the sight. It's like, oh man, these things just aren't hitting what they're supposed to be hitting. But yeah.
So I'm going to ask you this, Jack, like in that world of perfection, right? In your mind, in perfection, in the way that that you process everything. Okay. So backstory here, Jack shot his first deer this year. It was a buck. And was it like perfect? Did everything go perfect? Were you able to, you know what I mean? Like, cause that's I think the difference between like what I was saying earlier is there's guys that want to shoot these perfect 14s and being able to execute that shot and be able to hit where you're aiming and all that stuff. I'm not taking anything away from that. I mean, that we all wish we could do that, right? But there's a difference, I think, when it comes to like when the deer gets a say, when the target's moving and breathing and, you know, trying to survive, right? So how did that in a perfectionist world, like how did that whole scenario go for you?
Screwed me up.
There isn't a spot. Like,
yeah. Yeah, it's like, well, long story short, I got out to my spot late. There was a bunch of activity. I'm thinking, oh, my hunt's already ruined. I'm on the polo. It's like, I don't know what to do. I'm getting advice. I did my thing. And then I got to a new stand or a new spot after you're like, hey, what are you going to do? Because when's going to change? Go here. Okay, cool. So I'm sitting there and it's like, I had a feeling that there was deer in there. And then here they come. I'm like, oh, cool. 30 yards out. All of a sudden, either it's spooked somehow. I don't know if they got ground scent. They seen me. I don't know. And they took off. And at that point, I'm like, well, there goes my hunt. And then that's when I text you. I was like, I don't know what to do. Well, you got two options. Either stay or get down and try to cut them off. It's like, well, shoot. By the time I get down, pack up, get over there, it's like shooting light's already gone. I'm going to sit here. And then at that point, I'm thinking, well, that was it. That was my opportunity. My hunt's over with. And then sure enough, here comes Brown. I'm like, oh, well, screw it. If it's a doe, I got to take her. And well, it's a buck. Oh, sweet. Came straight in, took the shot. Then I text everybody and get on polo. And later on, you asked, he goes, was it a perfect hunt? Not really. A lot of things went wrong. But what was the outcome? It's like, I got a dead deer. That's all that matters. It's like, and then you also said the same things. Like the deer have a say. They may come down where you think they're going to come down. They may not. It is what it is. And at that point, I'm thinking, you're right. It's not in my control. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. The fact of the matter is I put an arrow in this deer and it was laying down 56 yards from where I shot it. And now it's getting processed and going to hang on my wall.
And so I don't think that there was anybody happier than our group of folks for you in that moment. And it's not because of anything other than the community that we've created, and it's freaking amazing. But in that moment of taking that shot at that deer, how did all of your, arrow tuning and everything having to be perfect for form and all that stuff? How much of that stuff was going through your mind as your heart's racing and the deer's there and everything?
It wasn't even there. It wasn't even a thought. It was almost like I knew what I had to do, and it happened without thinking. And I've gotten that before in the questions. It's with combat. It's how did you know what to do? It's it just, the training, it kicked in. I did what I had to do without thinking. And then after the math of it, or, you're thinking, holy crap, that just happened. I could have just died, or I just shot a deer. Now what? But yeah, it's as soon as I seen that brown, it's my mind went to what I needed to do without thinking.
And do you think that is all the shooting, and it's interesting to me because I'm the biggest proponent of you got to get some deer under your belt. You got to shoot at some deer. You have to, and I think you've missed deer. You had.
Well, I had that opportunity on that doe a few nights before the buck. And it was one of those things, like you said, get it under your belt. So your voice is in my head. I got to get something in my belt. But it was just such a weird shot that I missed. And it's like, okay, well, that was my first time shooting at a deer. So like, at least I did that part. Yeah. And then worked my way up.
But I just think we won't say how many deer Brad shot at last year or anything. But I feel like sometimes we believe, or like we live in our own head, like we're only as good as our last shot. And if your last shot, you just completely blew it, then now instead of saying this deer, as soon as I see brown, I go into kill mode, you go, oh my God, don't screw this up. Like, all right, you're better than this, but you've already lost because you've already missed before you even took the shot. Cause you're saying like, don't miss instead of like, oh, I'm shooting this thing right behind the front shoulder and it is dead. And you can go the other way and you can screw it up because it's already hanging on the wall. But those are two different.
Both of those this year, in case anyone was wondering.
But those are the things that happen, and so that's the thing. Is like you can shoot all winter long and everything, but if you think that you're only going to have like one or two opportunities a year, and then you mess up the first one, you're like, oh my God, that was it. Like my season's over. Just like you were saying, like my hunt's over, like all that stuff. So it's just like I said, from like a perfectionist standpoint, because you've shot with me before at TAC, and Brad got to shoot with me today, and like the perfectionist I am not.
No.
Like I'm out there having fun, doing my thing, and I know that when I do what I'm supposed to do, the arrows more or less within inside of 100 yards go near where they're supposed to. But beyond that, it's like, I can't care about every single 30-yard shot. Like, let's have some fun. Like, it'll be okay. It's going to be okay. Right.
Yeah.
And I can't process that. And I think I probably get that from Frank, right? Because he's like, I don't know, killed just as many deer as the EHD, and he's shot at more than he's killed, but he just keeps shooting at them, and that's just the way it is. But when we shoot foam, when we shoot targets, he's like, it doesn't do anything for him. And I think you could probably relate to that, Brad, is it doesn't get him excited to shoot a piece of foam as it does like when the deer is there. Cause
oh yeah.
And for him, it's not the deer on the wall. Like he can already taste the deer. Like that deer's in the pan. Like that's the thing, right?
Yeah. In that aspect, it's two different things. It feels good. It feels good to shoot and hit foam, but I feel like in the woods I have more of this, like, kind of like Jack was saying, this like instinctive, I know what I'm doing. And out there I just kind of, especially yesterday, I felt completely foreign to like, I felt like I'd never picked up a bow before because there was all these guys that were just doing, and I'm going to be blunt, they were doing extra shit for no reason. They're all the letting down and I remember at one point I drew and this giant back gust hit us, right? And the wind kept switching. Like this, I watched the dude drop milkweed, and the three pieces he dropped went three different directions. Like it just was switching that fast. And I drew and I got set and I got blown off my target, and I came back and I got blown off my target and I came back. And the third or fourth time I got blown off and came back, the dude was like, just let down. And it was a 10. And he's like, how the hell did you do that? And I was like, because in the woods, I don't just let down. Like you stay with it. The deer, regardless of what happens, for the most part, the deer's not going to give you another chance. There's not going to be another time to get drawn, especially like that, to move that much in the deer stand. And out here in this field, if I got I get 6 hours if I want it. So like, I do a lot more purposeful stuff for that muscle memory Jack was talking about. And that's one of the things. How often do you step up to your target at the house and draw and hold it for 2 minutes or 3 minutes? Or to the point where you're literally shaking and you're thinking, should I let down? Should I not let down? And then take your shot. And I don't do that enough. But in the woods, how often are we presented with that situation where you are at complete muscle failure, and then the deer takes that one step you need him to take, and then now you got to execute a perfect shot. And those are the things that's why foam sounded so off-putting to me, is that I was trying to compare myself to the perfectionist guy with the lenses and his scopes and all that, and the me that's out there just like, if I hit foam, I hit foam. That's what I want for the day. And yesterday, 100% yesterday, I was like, foam is home, and that's, as long as I'm not digging through this tall grass for an arrow, I'm happy. And only had to do that once. So go flash forward to today, and all of a sudden it was a little more, the environmental factor wasn't there as much. And I was shooting next to, an Olympic archer in Jack. So it was more like, all right, now I got to try and get home. But we did that for the first 8 targets, and we stepped up to this buffalo. And I mean, a full body buffalo at 32 yards or something. And Adam's like, yeah, we're not doing that shit. Turn around. And we walked back to like some random tire tracks, stepped foot on the tire tracks. And he was like, how far is that? And it was like 63 yards. And it was like, all right, go. And so that's more. But
the long stabilizer guys are like, good luck.
Yeah.
What do you mean good luck? The thing's the size of a car. Yeah. The car that we drove was smaller than that.
Right. We dropped a whole quiver on this thing, and it was like all within the same spot.
I sent Brian Terry a picture of the caribou. There was I had 5, you had 5.
I don't know what I had left at that point.
Adam was pulling inserts because he had, never mind, JV weld and stuff in his arrows. And, but yeah, there was like
a dozen
at least, at least a dozen at the very least, if not more, in this caribou. And it just looks like it was absolutely peppered in different spots. But in that moment, like Brian may look at that and be like, Jesus, I can't put that on the Facebook page. If there were all 10 rings, of course, that's immediate to post, But to me, like, that was the funnest shooting we did, where we just literally just kept shooting until the quivers were empty. And then we went and we did that for 5 targets in a row.
Yeah.
And at random yardages, and that was it. And then all of a sudden at the end, I'm like, I can't miss an arrow.
It was that bear that we blowing out the dick on. You're just like, right about here. What is it? Okay.
And Brad says, that one's not as big. That target's a little smaller. Like, it's going to be fine. Like,
and I said that, and then the first shot, it was like 42 yards or whatever, right? Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's my spot. And I 12 ring. That was probably one of the 3 12 rings I shot all day out of 1,000 arrows. I don't know what we shot. But I walked up and 12 ring this bear that I was nervous to shoot at. And it's like, God, if I could stay in that mindset I was after I made that first shot, before I made the first shot, I feel like everything would be better.
Well, I think that puts it in a little bit of perspective, right? So as we were on a 25 yard or a 25, 26 target course, and Brad says we shot 1,000 arrows. I mean, that's how many times we were shooting at each one of these targets. And, nobody was behind us. It wasn't like we were holding anybody up, but we were just having fun. And that's, I think we're definitely able to do that, a little bit of attack, because we don't let down. I mean, some guys do sometimes. Like if extenuating circumstances, but realistically, we go up there and we know we're a big group and we're going to be probably looking for arrows, but it's like we get up there, we shoot, and if there's nobody around, we shoot again, or we'll shoot through the trees and we'll shoot over here. And like I say, I think that that's where it comes from, but it's 100% like that camaraderie and the joking and all of that stuff. And I think, I'm glad that you, Brad, were able to like experience that, and you didn't come out and be like, yeah, this is dumb. Like to come all the way up from Tennessee, and be like, thanks for inviting me to this. Like,
well, I'm not going to lie. So I have 5 acres at the house, and it's mostly knocked down. Like there's no trees, there's no whatever, but I have 10, I think, different targets between bags and blocks and, some older foam stuff. And my parents have 26. And my brother lives right there. And I'm honestly thinking about going and taking everything I got that's sitting in a field right now at 5-yard increments that I shoot out of my saddle with, and taking it up to my parents and just kind of doing that all summer with my brother, my dad, and the kids, and building obviously as long as dad's okay with it, essentially building a 3D range out of, random bag targets and $26 blocks from Walmart, and making that the fun we had on the second half, or the whole day to day, basically replicating that, because we just don't have that at home. There's a couple 3D shoots, but they're a lot more structured, like that trad shoot was. There's one that pops up by my dad's house. It's like, I want to say like once a month. But it's not, and that's what I was talking to that Centerpoint dude about, was like, we don't have, I would love to be able to join that community, because that sounded like he definitely spoke to me. Like, Jack can attest to this. Like, I get home off of work as a paramedic and I had a rough shift, or I saw some shit nobody wants to ever have to see, or I had to make a decision about, stopping CPR or pick 9 million things. And I get home and I shoot my bow, because it gives me time to process and think through all those things. And at the same time, I'm keeping my mind off of those things by making sure my mind's in my shot process and my, I don't want to throw an arrow through my shop wall. So I shoot my bow. And even if it's inside with the trad bow at 10 yards, like I'm still doing the same thing. It's piss pouring rain, I'm going to go inside and shoot. And I think that's the all-encompassing point, is just to get to other people who are in that situation and show them that there is an outlet they can do in their garage that isn't alcohol, drugs, gambling, pick all the things we've all heard about not to do forever, especially as veterans, right? And we've all seen guys that have gone down all those routes. And if somebody would have just stuck a bow in our hand or in their hand at those points, how different would have the outcome be? How different would have, the guy, we talked about it today, the phone calls I've got, or did you hear so-and-so, killed themselves? How different would that have been if they had found an outlet like archery was to Jack or myself or whoever that could, and that Centerpoint thing was like, yeah, I'm in. And then I realized I don't have anywhere to do it. So now I have to try and figure out the how or the where, so that I can figure out the how, so that I'm definitely not done with that idea, but it's a little bit more, there's a little bit more in play than originally. If we had a club like you have your Bowman's Club, where you could just pull up to and say, hey, we're going to do this on Tuesday mornings. We're going to have Bo and Joe, right? Like that's great. That's so like, and I just wish we had a facility that we could pull that off.
So if you're in Bumfrick, Tennessee, and you got a Bowman's Club, get a hold of Brad, or something. But they do it like through churches and stuff like that. And I think that that's a great kind of like way to kind of close this out, is that, that's the whole point of like what Chris was doing with this, his HHA USA and giving back to veterans and trying to do this, because there's way more people out there than that have your same stories, who have found archery as a very therapeutic way to kind of process some of this stuff. And then there's, tens of thousands more that haven't, that could certainly benefit from it. And, to put the information out there and to just kind of like be a safe space or whatever for that. And to bring everybody together, like in this thing is like, yesterday, Jack shows up and there's music playing and all that stuff, but it was I think the words Jack used were like level playing field of like everybody in there was there like for a reason. They'd all, it doesn't matter. Like we all, for like a normal person, like somebody who's not a veteran or whatever, like you can walk into a room and like, if there's a hunter there, you're going to find them and you're going to talk hunting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're going to do that. And so everybody in that room had that, but then everybody else had this other, kind of layer to that. And like I say, it was really cool getting to meet some people and being thrown into that mix of the scramble and everything yesterday. So, and I guess that's just one thing is like, to Jack's point, like if you're going to, if you know somebody like that or whatever, be that friend that says, hey, I'm going to shoot my bow. Like, have you ever shot bows or whatever? Or just bring it over and bring a target over and say, hey man, we can do that. We can shoot in the garage. Like, check this out.
Yeah.
And,
I mean, you don't have to do the whole, like, let's go hunting. 'Cause, I mean, some people just don't want to hunt, but it's like, here's the bow. This is how you do it. There's the target. Just take a shot. And I would guarantee after that first shot, they're going to be like, oh, well, let me do that again. And it's going to get to the point to where it's like, well, how much are bows? And then what bow is a good bow? What arrows should I get? Well, now you got that individual set.
Sucked in.
Yeah. And then eventually
so sponsors can get money. No.
Eventually they may want to try hunting. And then we're bringing more into the community of hunting and whatnot. But I mean, that's just how it started with me. It was just like, can I do this? Well, I can. And then my brother and my dad are like, hey, we're going up to Grandpa's property to hunt. Oh, I never hunt. Just come on up. All right. And that was 9-10 years ago. And I've gone every year since.
Or maybe just be that friend that says, hey, we're doing this today.
Yeah.
You're going to do it.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to be hunting because, there's a whole different side to killing and all that sort of stuff. But you can say, hey, we're going to go shooting today. And, I guarantee you most people would be like, oh yeah, I'm in, we're going shooting. And then you show up with some bows and they're going to be like, what the hell? Yeah. Like, hey, we're going to have fun.
Yeah.
And this is shooting too. So lots of ways to do it. But, I'm really thankful for you guys coming to, hang out with me,
fun.
like whatever. But just to come up here and, kind of see this and kind of experience it. So
yeah, it's, to like end it, right? So initial expectation was come up here, hang out with y'all. That's why I'm here, right? And now I have this newfound like, hey, I think our community, especially being a military town I think our community is missing this chunk. And now I have to try and figure out the best route to get to that point where it's a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like I say, if we are able to help one person, right, just through this conversation or like you coming up here and in your town or in our town with our club or anything like that, I think that's a win, right? Like, and that's, never the expectation for me is like, oh, we're going to impact all these people. But, when it happens, you're like, or when you're like, oh man, we could use this to make a difference. Then it's bigger than that. You're like, oh, okay. All right. We can do this. So, and
it helps when it's something you're super passionate about.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's like a weird way. 'Cause like I always say, like, okay. We're passionate about it, but like, this is just like our life, it's like, it's so weird. Like I could be really passionate about like race cars or, other things. And that would just like that would be your life. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just, if we can do the things that we normally do every day and help people, you know, because I could try to push, like, you know, craft beer on you or something. Like, when you say passionate about something, it's like, it's
right.
weird.
Well, and I mean more like organically.
Yeah,
like it's something that you're doing without forcing it. Like, and you're right. I could learn how to be a stress debriefing counselor tomorrow. You know, I could start that process. But if I can do it with a bow in my hand, having, you know, a beer and shooting, that is way easier than trying to have like the long conversation. I'm sure all three of us in this room have had to have or have you know, avoided in any situation, or most people ever have seen some type of a traumatic event, whether it be a friend or family member dying or combat or, you know, a car wreck or whatever. Nobody wants to have that conversation. But if you can get two dudes that come from a similar ideal or similar background and have that, and then all of a sudden you're like, how you doing, buddy? You know, like that's, you could help.
Yeah. Yeah. And I 100% agree. And like I say, this stuff to me is like, it's always funny how it works out like that or whatever. Mm-hmm. So like I say, I'm just happy that you guys were able to come up here and hang out, and we kind of talk about this, and maybe hopefully this reaches somebody else, or somebody else is going to say like, oh, you know, I would like to help out with that. I would like to do that. Or they can say, come on, buddy, we're going to go shoot. So yeah, I think that's pretty awesome. So I think that's kind of all we got for today. You know,
thanks for forcing me to come to this weekend.
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, without Adam unofficially bugging Chris and getting us email invites, you know, and as I met Chris yesterday, and he was like, how did you end up here? Because I don't really, and I was like, oh, well, Adam Miller got me. And, you know, that wouldn't have happened if this guy hadn't shown up.
Well, I always will say, like, you know, support the people that support you, and you know, it's really easy to do things for good people. Like, you know, despite what I might think about you, Brad, you're a good person, and you know,
it's on the record now.
but yeah,
take
like
that back.
Yeah, that's like the easiest part, and like I say, that's why I continue to do the podcast, because people are like, man, isn't that a lot of work? And like, it takes a lot of time. And it's like, it is, but like the community, the people, the everything, that like, that's what drives the whole thing. And so to be able to do that, and it's not like, oh, this is what I do for you. But if I can, I will. And you know, I'm just happy to be able to, you know, put you in conversations like this and like that to you know, kind of further things along. So yeah,
appreciate it.
Good day. Let's have some beers, boys.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.